Welcome again to another Xamarin and MAUI video about component drawing. In this video, we will show the creation of this slider component. As you can see, as I touch the component with my finger, it changes the value. I have this vertical orientation slider, and below here I have this horizontal orientation. It's the same component, but working in different orientations. So let's see how to create this. But before we start, it's very important that I show you that in this project I am using the version 9 of the C#. Okay, first of all, let's install the SkiaSharp. Go to Manage Packages for Solution and install the SkiaSharp.views.forms in all the three projects. Let's create a new class. I will call it int value slider. Here I will be using the SKGL view. I have chosen the SKGL view because of the usage of the GPU instead of the CPU. Let's start by creating the enumerator that will indicate the orientation. I will paste those properties right here. Let me fix this error. So here I have the color of the border, the thickness, and the radius. This on property changed, on draw property changed methods will be used especially by the hot reload, so it's very important to have those right here. And also to have a very dynamic component. Now I will paste those color properties. So here I have the minimum value gradient color and the max value gradient color. Those will be used when you have the minimum value to the max value, that alternation of color, you know, the gradient. If you don't know the concept of gradient, you can just search on Google. So I have the gradient for my minimum value and the max value. If you want, you can put more colors here. I will be using only two in this case. And here I have the unselected color. So when there is no value, it will be using this color. Here is my orientation property. And finally, my values property. So I have the minimum value, the max value, and the selected value, the current value. So why the minimum and the max? Well, you can have some properties with the following scenario. You can have this property, quantity of people per group. So in this scenario, you cannot have a group of one person only. So it's two people, to another number. So another positive integer number. But the key here is I need to have my minimum value. It's not always zero when I'm working with slider. So I have my minimum value and the maximum value. Also, I need to work with negative numbers and positive numbers. That's why I use this property, minimum value. Moving on, I will create the constructor and some fields. I have an event for my paint surface, for touch, and the property change of the control itself. Also, it's very important that we enable this property, enable touch events. Let's create those methods. For my control property change, I will only check for a size change. Before moving on, let's create the draw property change. On this one, I will just force a new draw. Just a quick fix here on my selected value, it's not on selected value property changed, it's also on draw property changed. Now let's create our touch method. I will paste the code here. So here I have the check for the orientation, if it's horizontal or vertical. I get the location of the touch. If it's on vertical, I only need the Y value. Else, on the horizontal, I only need the X value. Here, I make sure that the touch on the vertical or horizontal, it's on the bounds. If it's out of the bounds, I set the value according to the maximum or the minimum. Now I will paste this method here. This one is the interpolation. So I need to know where, not where, but how much my touch on the screen represents. So how much percent my touch on the screen represents, and what is that value between the maximum and the minimum. So here is, I get this value and start on the selected value. And finally, set my handled property of the touch event to true. Those two properties, the current box width and height, will be set on the draw event. So by now it's 0, but the draw event, the paint of my component will set those variables. It's the height and the width in Skia size, not on Xamarin, of my control. Moving on to the paint surface method. Here I get the width and the height of my control. Also the canvas, I start the canvas on a variable. Here I will create the unselected color. Now I will check if I am using the corner radius property, if it's 0 or if it's not 0. If my corner radius has a value, I need to call another method of the Skia. So I will call the canvas draw my round rect. If I have no corner radius, I will only call the draw rect. We don't need to draw the selected bar if there is no value, if there is no selected value. So let's check that. If I have something selected, now I will draw the selected bar. So until now we check for the orientation. I start here instead of check it two times. Here I create my colors. If I am using vertical orientation, I take the max and the minimum after, else I do the inverse. Here I take the vertical orientation, again check for it. If is vertical orientation, I create a style of gradient in this way, else I create in this way, because if we have a vertical one, we need to take a color from the bottom to top. If it's on horizontal orientation, we need to take from left to right, so it's different. And here I create the form paint using that shader, that gradient. Here I again do some kind of interpolation now to apply my calculation on the Skia side. Now let's finally draw the bar on vertical orientation. So here I take the inverse percentage of my current value, because when working with a vertical oriented slider, it's from bottom to top. So Skia is different. It works from top to bottom. So the 0.0 point is on the top. So here I do the inversion of my percentage value. I calculate the selected height and draw the the bar, using corner or not. Let's draw the horizontal orientation. For horizontal orientation is very simple. I only take my quantity percentage of my selected value and see how much it represents on my width of my control, and then create a rectangle using corner or not with that width. Let's create the borders. Again, very simple. Only take the border color from my border color property, of course, and then create a paint and draw a rectangle based on the corner radius. Here I have this value, which is a property here on my main page. So if I go to my code behind, you can see that it's a bindable property of the type of the integer type. So here I do the binding and it's referencing my own page. And also I have this light gray border color, the border thickness of 3, corner radius 30. I have this crimson to long green grad colors, and here I have this styling stuff, only the unselected color that is almost the same of my background of the page. So let's check the results. Here is the application running. If I use my finger to touch, you can see that it's working. The value is changing, but just a small error. If you see when I go to 0, the border disappears. So it's a little buggy. To fix that, let's go to the component, and as you can see, I have my border draw inside the selected value. So if there is no value, it will be no border. Well, it's a little mistake. Let's fix that. Here it is, and let's test again. Now let's touch, and as you can see, everything working. I will put the value to 0 and the border is there. So everything working fine now. Now let's create another bar, this time on the horizontal orientation. Back to the page. Here I will copy this, change the row of my grid. Also I will set my horizontal option to fill and expand. No width. And also, of course, I need to set the orientation to horizontal. Here is my bar on the bottom side. Let's test. And working. Fantastic. So the component is ready. You can modify whatever you want. You can change the colors. You can change the, I don't know, maybe the orientation from, for instance, here on my vertical slider, you can maybe put the value from top to bottom, the inverse of this one. Well, I hope you enjoy, and I hope that I help you in something. And thank you again for watching, and see you next time.